Let's start again with Kung Fu Panda, okay?
Hi.
Do you remember the quote?
I don't want to butcher it, so you do it.
Okay. The past is history. The future is a mystery. The present is a gift. That's why it's called the present.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's good for especially for a modern kids show, or kids movie. It's great.
It's profound. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It is. It's all we ever have. We have this ongoing now. Yes?
Yeah. And so I'm just wondering, for most people, why do you think it's really hard for most people to focus in on the now? Why do you think most people, or you and me, are get caught up with past, present, and just not focusing here on the now?
Fear and heartbreak, dude.
Fear, heartbreak,
Right.
fear of what? Of death, or what? What do you think?
fear,
Fear of?
fear of of all pain and all suffering unto death, right?
Yeah,
Fear of not being loved
yeah,
based on experiences in the past,
yeah. Loneliness, all of it.
loneliness, and
Yeah.
all which is real.
Hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. But again,
Um, I was just gonna say, you've told me that as your clients, the worst thing you've had to deal with besides death is divorces and breakups. And for people, that's like the most traumatic thing next to
well,
death
no,
is a
no, there's
breakup.
also no, there's also the terrible cruelty of things like rape and incest. You know
Of
what I
course,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
takes the cake. But you were saying that's a pretty traumatic thing for people, like compared to the really bad things is usually like breakups and divorces is what really kind of messes up a lot of people
Hi,
down the
but
line.
allowably, I mean, those
Yeah,
can mess up people like significantly.
yeah,
It caused my mom to lapse into alcoholism.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then so I guess we'll go back. So how does focusing on the now and the present help aid those things?
okay. Right now, for you and I, right now, for you and I, again, what bad is happening right now?
Right now, for me, absolutely nothing, but my dog is whining. She wants to go outside. So for her, maybe some bad, but for me, everything's good. Give me one second. It's pretty nice out, so I'm just gonna leave the door open for her. But yeah, I mean, for me right now, I think I can go over it. I have my rent paid, so I have a house over my head. I have food in my fridge, so I'm fed. I'm sheltered. I have company with all of my animals and everything, and
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 me, and me through the
and
miracle of modern technology,
yeah,
right?
you're in my room right here without we're having a conversation. I didn't have to leave my house, which is pretty incredible. Just all of it, all of those things.
Alex, you see, we are so habituated to it that we say it's pretty incredible. No, no, it is astonishing.
Hi, yeah.
Should I
What
do
is
my
the?
grandmother's story with the flying machine? Should I do that? Do you think
Yeah,
that would
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
okay? So again, you know the story, but I'll do it again, right? For anybody who might listen to this, that my grandmother was raised during a time when there were no cars and no airplanes. They were,
When was
they
she
were,
born?
huh?
When was she born?
She was born like 1885 or something like that. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Yeah, maybe a little bit 1890, something like that. Anyway, when I was a teenager and I would be with her, and we'd be outside, and a plane would go overhead that I was raised with. So for me, it was habituated.
Yeah.
There was nothing, it's a plane. And she would go, "Oh dear, look, a flying machine."
Yeah.
Wonderstruck. She would be wonderstruck. And again, it made an impact on me. It's like, Chris, don't take this for granted. And
Seriously.
you and I have talked about the fact that we take so much for granted.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of two things. There's a quote, I don't know who said the quote, but it said, any advanced technology will be indistinguishable from magic. Someone said that. He's a writer and like, yeah, it's like, it is magic. Like, I mean, most of us, even if you break it down, and like really explain to someone how a computer works, it's like you are sending electrons through crystals and wires, and you're directing energy to different pieces of electrons and stuff, and making you appear on my screen. Like even if you really break it down, it's pretty
Yes,
magic.
and over vast distances across the planet.
Real time.
Real time. Again, like my grandmother, for me, right now as an old man, this is wondrous. It's wondrous.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up with Star Trek and Beam Me Up, Scotty, and that was inconceivable. I mean, the only thing that a cell phone can't do is beam you up.
Seriously, and one day it will probably be able to.
Yeah, I think. I
Yeah.
think.
For a
So,
lot of
so
people, well, if I'm just gonna really quickly, for a lot of people in my generation, not seeing an airplane in the sky is almost more unique than seeing an airplane in the sky, because you're so used to seeing airplanes when there's nothing in the sky. You're like, huh, this is quiet out here. So it's like the opposite now.
hi, hi. But again, the point of you and I over all these years talking about this stuff is to renew a sense of living miracle and wonder in the midst of, again, this, this deadly miracle called being alive. Yeah?
Yeah.
And why is that imperative? The reason why that is imperative is that most of us are living in, again, you know the phrase, dukkha, an anguished sense of lack. And this is the way we live our lives through these infinite numbers of nows, right? Until we die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is beyond heartbreaking. It's
And,
beyond heartbreaking.
and
And
do you think,
it causes us to go crazy, and then we do hideous things to each other and other species and the very thing that gives shelter to our beings called the earth.
yeah.
The cost is too high for this kind of lunacy. It's just way too high.
So why do you think it's so hard for most of us to change or to do something about it?
Well, in one way, because none of us have been told about this.
Yeah. But do you think that we secretly kind of know deep down that something's off, that we're really unhappy, or that we're not going through life the right way, or
Yes, that's why everybody bitches about life.
and so it would probably be good to find some way to traverse through this life in a meaningful or at least coherent way.
I would say again, once we get back into, I'm going to do this again, right here, right now, what bad is happening for you or I?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I will say honestly, I'm thinking about it. I'm not going to jump on it, but like going down the list of things, I went down before, you know, I have, I have nothing to do today besides talk to you, and I have like, a little bit of chores, got to clean up my house, but nothing really pressing, nothing stressful happening, everything like all of my worries are pretty much, pretty mundane, and I have everything that I need. So like, in all honesty, I can really think about it. I think things are pretty good, right? At this very moment, things are great. Nothing's wrong. And
Okay,
like,
now, again, with the acknowledgement that this is happening, on the outskirts of the Milky Way galaxy. What about that?
yeah, with
Now,
limited engagement, and it's not going to be, you don't have this forever. So
hi,
those,
hi. But just for a second, this is not just happening in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This is happening, on the North American continent, on planet Earth, in the middle of the solar system, right? In the middle of, again, the river of stars, which is what the Asians call the Milky Way galaxy. I mean, this
yeah,
is real. This is a
yeah,
fact. Now, it's important to acknowledge these things, right? Because then we come back to the immensity of what we are in the middle of. And in acknowledging that immensity, yes, right, it can begin to counterbalance the endless mundanity that we have to deal with that makes life small and trivial. Life is not small and trivial. It is not. Paying bills is, yes.
yeah,
Making the bed
yeah,
is, remembering to buy dog food is.
yeah. So I guess a question I have is, if you're stuck in that loop, that mundane loop, how do you break out, or how do you see the beauty, or just realize the importance of, or not, I don't know, how do you see the beauty and let that kind of nourish you, I guess?
I would say, look.
Yeah. But most people are so blinded, right?
Hi.
And most
Well,
people
again,
don't think
this
most. I guess what I think is most people, like you said, they don't think about it, so they don't think that what they need. They think that they need to continue doing the drudgery and the mundane, the daily cycle, and that's what's going to lead them to some success. And I guess, do you think it's our society that kind of doesn't let you go towards these ideas, or says go away from these ideas? Like these are super, or these are like sophistry. These are like things that aren't going to help us because they're not going to help you do your job or pay your taxes. So don't focus on them. Do you think
yes,
maybe
yes,
that's an issue?
absolutely right. And again, they will not help you pay the bills, but they will balance paying the bills.
Hi.
And then we can take it all the way into the reference that we are using the Milky Way galaxy as an example of immensity and also of beauty, by the way. You know this.
Yeah.
If you go out at night and you see the river of stars going across the heavens, it is breathtakingly beautiful. And
Yeah.
you can do that anywhere on planet Earth. You can do that from the rooftop of a tenement in Calcutta, for God's sake. Yes? Now, again,
Hi.
will it help you get food when you're in the bowels of Calcutta? No, it will not. Yes, but again, it is also necessary for you and I to acknowledge that we are not in the bowels of Calcutta, right? Through nothing other than dumb good luck. And therefore, maybe we ought to be a little grateful for that. And therefore, then maybe part of what we do is to give back so that there are fewer people in the bowels of Calcutta.
Hi. Yep. No, I mean, I think that totally makes sense.
Just elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah.
Why does that make sense to you?
I think, well, because as we talked about in a previous video, but hasn't been explained in this video, for me personally, saying I appreciate something or saying I am happy to have something doesn't really do much if I don't have action afterwards. If I appreciate something and then I have action, which is taking care of it, or or yeah, just taking care of it. If it's a sweatshirt, folding it up. If it's a computer, or like you said, your car, cleaning it, or whatever it is. If you just take care of the things that you say you appreciate, then there's
If the
action.
word that I use is you cherish the things that you have, including people,
Hi.
including your pets. You know
Yeah,
this, right?
yeah. So just appreciation isn't enough, but action on top of that is really what solidifies that appreciation. And so, like you're talking about, giving back to the people in Calcutta, if you have the ability to, give back in the people of Calcutta, you know, that can really improve the quality of a lot of people's
for
lives.
for for lots and lots of us, right? You know, but again, let's stick with again this renewable alignment with the now. You can acknowledge that if you came back to how is my now, yes, and
Yeah.
you did that 300 times today, right? The odds are high that what would you come up with? What would you come up with each acknowledgement of now?
Do you want to say, for me personally, I think it would be, I've done this thought process a little bit, so I tend to go towards a more positive side. But I'm curious, like, what would the average person tend to think?
Well, right now, let's not go there, right?
Yeah,
Right? I'm just talking about you and me because that's real. It is not abstract. You understand me, right?
yeah,
We are
definitely.
dealing with the actuality of your now and my now.
Yeah,
Yes?
yeah, hi.
If
Yeah,
that is perceived as selfish, the fact is the whole point of this is maybe reminding people, a few or many, that they too can come back to in this now with the understanding that there was pain at birth, there will be pain in the dying process, in fear, in death, right? In the middle of all that, how might I use my time here in the best possible way if I think about it, i.e., using free will? Is life difficult? Absolutely, positively, right? Is nature, unencumbered nature, beautiful beyond expression? Absolutely. So, in terms of free will, just in terms of selfishness, be selfish. It's okay.
yeah.
What might be a better way to live all these innumerable nows with endless complaint or with endless acknowledgement that right now all's well.
Yeah. So
Brand new
here's a,
all's well, right?
a yeah, a good
Oh, except for
example
clapping my hands.
for me. A good example is like the moments I'm starting to fear the concept of death, or it causes me dread,
No, the
instead of
concept
allow.
of death is real, and that is causing
Yeah,
you fear. Dude, it
yeah,
should. It
hi-
should.
yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah. And when it causes me like almost an existential dread, and I feel like this is burdensome, then that's kind of when I've started to redirect my focus. And I'm just like, if I'm going to bed, I'm laying in bed and I'm about to go to sleep, and I start thinking about that, I'm like, this is not helping me at all right now. It's actually making me kind of, not happy or whatever. I try to redirect my focus onto something else, and just by trying to change my thought process and my focus onto something completely different, I can definitely take away from the future thought of what can happen in the future, what's going to happen in the past, and focus just on the now and be like, okay, I'm laying in my bed, like really nothing's bad right now, so just focus on that. Like if you just focus on the here and now, it a lot of times can take away from, oh God, what's going to happen in a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year down the road, all the rents and bills and
Allow me, then we're sort of we're what I would say lapsing into positive affirmation, which I disdain. I hate that. I
yeah,
just hate it. Right? As I just said to someone else about 15 minutes ago, positive affirmation is like building a beautiful house on top of open sewage. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Right? No matter how beautiful a house is, it's still going to smell like sewage. So what we're doing is we're going into the sewage, which again is a residual belief system that has been imposed on us right before we knew it by
yeah,
culture and family and all the rest of it. Yes?
hi,
So again, we're just going to be pragmatic now. If if we are presented with this existential conundrum of birth and death, right? The great matter of birth and death, which allows us, right, the ongoing understanding that we are here for a limited amount of time. If that is the case, as a real existential, that's the truth. Yes? So
hi.
if that is the case, and let's just say that that is all there is, because that is our fear. Yes?
Yeah,
Right?
is that we're born, we live, and we die,
Hi, that's it.
and that's it.
That's it. And all around that is vacuity. Yes?
Hi.
If that is the case, for ourselves, selfishly, what would be the best way to use our nows?
To just kind of appreciate it or be present and enjoy it, or not enjoy it, but uh, be
No,
present and utilize it. Kind of. That's what I'm
no,
my mind.
it's just fine. Enjoy
Yeah,
it is just fine. As a matter of fact, if we acknowledge that it is limited, enjoyment, right, can potentially become being wonderstruck.
hi.
Which excuse me, am I bragging? Kinda. It's very hard won. Lucky bull, it's hard work. But now for a couple of decades, easily, maybe a quarter of a century, every day, yes, has been wondrous, wondrous. In the middle of aging and decline and no longer being, desirable to women and all the rest of it. You know what I'm saying? The fact is that I'm still in the middle of this deadly miracle that in and of itself is beautiful beyond expression. Nature, which we use to separate us from eternity, which is actually an expression of eternity, is breathtakingly beautiful, at least where I am and where you are in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Are there places where it's not beautiful, in the slums of all urban centers? Not so much. Not so
Yeah,
much. Yes? Therefore, we be of service to people who are stuck in those places as best we can. And if a shitload of us got down with that program, right, maybe this would allow more of those people to leave the slums of urban centers.
yeah. I think for me, a little bit of my on road into the Zen practice, right like when I very first met you, was Planet Earth. The series, the documentary series Planet Earth, and all those with David Attenborough, because it showed to me, at a young age, seeing the entire world and seeing how diverse and unique and intelligent and amazing and thriving and all of these things,
And beautiful or not.
beautiful, yeah, incredible. And so, it showed me that, that I don't know what the word is, but just that beauty of the world, the diversity and the, like all of it. And so it helped kind of, start that, okay, look at, this is what is actually there. This is the beauty of it. It's not all just mundane,
Well
you
done.
know,
Well
we
done.
live, we go to
You
work, we die.
remember the things? I'm sorry, interrupted.
Oh, I was just saying we live, we go to work, we die. And that's it.
Hi, hi.
Yeah.
Again, that is an option. We can go with that should we desire. And, it would not be wrong,
Hmm.
but it would be so limited in the face of what we're actually in the midst of. Yeah. And even in the slums of Calcutta, if you've got a cell phone, you can watch David Attenborough,
Yeah. Yeah.
which to me is miraculous. That is miraculous. And you and I have also talked about the fact where you said, Chris, that's pixels. You're looking at pixels, right? Well, my answer to that is, the way we see is through electrochemical impulses going from our optic nerve into a portion of the brain.
Yeah.
Yes. So again, is it real or is it not real? And I don't want to go into that now. I don't want to get too spread too thin. I
Yeah.
want to stick with our capacity, all of us, right, relatively speaking, to come back into acknowledgement that we have innumerable nows where nothing bad is happening to us. And it
Yeah.
is only in our clinging to fears that are generated from experience in the past, projected onto the present, into the future, that keeps our inability to acknowledge that we are now, right now, in a time of safety. And in that acknowledgement, we can then partake of this, right, like a meal.
Yeah.
In partaking of it like a meal, we then get nourished. In that nourishment, we experience gratitude. In being in a state of gratitude that becomes more and more of a norm, right, there is more likelihood that we will then organically want to give back, to help others. So it's this beautiful holistic shift in the way to be alive.
Yeah. No,
Now,
I agree. And
you're
no,
allowed to bullshit anytime. You're
um,
allowed to say bullshit anytime, but then you have to back it up. Why is it bullshit? See?
yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think that for me, I've always said that I would like to give back to people, but I have to first be able to take care of myself and have the resources in order to do so.
Right.
But I want to go back a little bit and think like for people, because I've known a lot of people who they have a lot of problems in their life, but they also have a lot of little problems that are totally mundane and not real problems. And they get the two confused,
Right.
and then everything is a problem, and they can't solve anything. And every little problem that occurs, it's, oh my God, this is the end of the world. I can't do anything. And
Indeed.
then and then it's life is bad because I have all these little problems building up, which really aren't really bad in the light of the world, but I guess it's without the perspective, people get bogged down in their small view of this is, all these little mundane things are dragging me down and I can't escape this mundanity or this whatever.
That's true. That's true. Yes, but that does not have to be. Once you acknowledge that in the face of children, running from militia in countries in Africa, right? It's like the fact that I don't own a Lexus or I don't have arm candy or whatever it may be, right? This is chump change and I can let it go. And this is why we are so exhausted, is
Yeah.
because we chew on all of this like a shit sandwich. And then in order to exist, to live, we're always going against the shit sandwich, which is exhausting. It's exhausting. And we talked about this last time. Um, the fallacy is that we believe that if we anticipate the bad as our ongoing now, somehow when the bad happens, it will be less bad. And
You,
that is,
can I have an example?
uh, um, well, like my black friend who said, Chris, what about the guy at the door with the gun?
Hmm.
Well, again, if he lives all the time, all his days with the threat of the guy at the door with the gun, and there's no guy at the door with the gun, then would you say that he has wasted innumerable nows?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the answer would be, well, someday there's going to be a guy at the door with the gun, and you and I did this last time. Someday there's going to be a guy at the door with the scythe,
Yeah. We all go. Yeah, exactly.
which is
Yeah.
death. Yes,
Yeah.
you understand me? So this is not positive affirmation. We are not saying that there is not terrible difficulty, right, in being alive. There is. However, as old Aldous Huxley said, we create two-thirds of the problems that we experience in life. One third is real. It's real.
Yeah.
I mean, Aldous Huxley went blind for God's sake. Yes? And again, that astonishing man, that heroic man, had to learn Braille. And he said, you know what's nice about this is that when I'm reading at night in the wintertime, my hands don't get cold because he
Yeah.
could the covers and read with his hand.
That's pretty awesome.
That is heroic.
Yeah.
And again, then he discovered the Bates method of eye exercises and brought his eyesight back from blindness instead of hand wringing and not trying to do something about it. Now, this is what we can do with the bad of life. Then we can use past experience in relative degrees to make the present and the future better. That is the only reason to reference the bad of the past. Yes, with
Yeah.
the understanding that some bads we are not going to be able to anticipate. It will happen. There will be some nows that are heartbreaking. That's a given. That is a given. However, to use up all the nows that are neutral in anticipation of that, right? How does that sound if you think about it? How does that sound?
Well, I'm just thinking, like, just in terms of balance, if you had all good your entire life, you had none of the negative emotions and none of the bad, life would be really boring, And if your life was all really bad and none of the goods, your life would be really terrible and really tragic. So it's like most of us, like at least for me personally, I have a pretty balance. My life's not too tragic and my life's not too boring. It's like I have a pretty good middle balance. I think most people, at least in my age group or living in America or most countries do have that same kind of middle ground. Most of us are pretty lucky, unless you live in the slums of Calcutta or
Okay,
where
but I will say on your behalf, and I hope I don't offend you, to anybody who's listening to this, I know you well enough to know that your childhood was less than idyllic. You had a pretty rugged childhood, dude.
yeah.
Yes?
But even for me, I feel like comparing it, what the fast few um back and forths have made me think about is just perspective. It's just really good to have perspective,
I,
and like that will really help us kind of align with what's important, because we get like it's so hard for people to come back to what you're saying and to appreciate the little things, like having a house over your head and having the walls, because they're so caught up.
little things?
Yeah, right. Yeah, the big things. I mean, yeah, seriously. Yeah, right. That was a Freudian slip or what? I don't even know.
Right,
But
right, right, right.
yeah, but yeah, no, like I guess that, yeah. So that's one way we can come back, is just perspective. I think, like, how do you think? Why do you think it's hard for people to not get perspective, or what would be an easier way for people to get perspective without kind of insulting them, without making them feel like I'm showing this to you so that that there's worse people out there than you. Like, how do you like,
No,
you know,
you
ins-
mean there are people in worse situations than you,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. Without saying, like, without drilling that into someone's head, trying to like, impose that upon someone. How do you like present that to someone, you know? but really show them that there are people in lots of worse situations, and what they have is actually very good, you know?
Well, one thing that I would say that anybody who's listening to this, who has the leisure to listen to this, the now that they are listening to this in is there's no problems in it. I'm sorry. There may be problems from before or upcoming problems, but with the leisure to listen to this right here, right now, nothing bad is happening to them. And
Yeah,
again, if they align with this as a new norm, what we discover is it's not balance as far as 50-50. It's about, I don't know, in every now, the kasana of a mind moment that we've talked about in Buddhism, the now, right? If we start working with that, not as a pleasant idea, right, but as a living truth, because it is a living truth,
hmm,
what we might come up with is, holy shit, right? I have got like lots of nows that are, I'm not going to say neutral because then, it's like, okay, neutral, but, potentially filled with ease.
yeah.
You
And
understand?
like I would just kind of take, I don't know, like,
And then if we go into those nows of ease and we start really like savoring those nows of ease, we are also saving a great deal of energy. So that then when we are dealing with problematic nows or anticipating a problematic now that's going to happen next week, we have much more energy to deal with it with lucidity and problem solving instead of hand wringing and lament.
yeah. So I mean, for me, it just makes me think that there are definitely ways to traverse through life in a coherent way, but I guess we get so bogged down with all these mundane ideas, I guess it's from our society or from
One day
culture or whatever.
legitimate heartbreak. And legitimate heartbreak, again, we are not saying that we're going to come into some woo woo new age place where nothing bad happens. All that is being said with great adamance is that we waste much of our lifespan, right, in habituated anticipation of the bad to come based on the bad that has occurred. And with life being limited engagement because we're all going to die, yeah,
Yeah.
does that make any sense as far as how we use the gift of life?
Okay, yeah. So for me, I think it really does appeal to my sense of logic because there's so many people online, they call themselves gurus or other people call themselves gurus, and they're trying to give, like there's this one guy, I can't remember his name. He's on Joe Rogan, this guy Joe Rogan's podcast. He's a Jewish guy, and he talks about Buddhism and meditation, but he wears like normal white man's clothes. He doesn't come from a place of spirituality at all. But um but these guys, they are always talking about how, like, similar to what we're talking about right now, how to traverse through life in a coherent way, but they don't seem like they don't appeal to my logic because they make it seem like this is some almost like you have to be like what we're talking about is a balance. You're not going to be happy all the time. We're not perfect people. We're not like everything's great all the time. There is bad and there is good. We just are able to, or not we were, what we're talking about is being able to acknowledge the situations and invest your energy into each one when it's occurring, the bad and the good. But these gurus, they kind of make it seem like, this is what you do and life will be good. This is what you do, eat healthy, meditate, go to sleep early, do all these things and your life will be good, and they say that and that doesn't really apply to my or appeal to my logic or to my logic because it
You and
seems like
I is that's a beginning, that's a start if you
definitely,
can, by the way,
definitely.
if you can, yes, However, what we're talking about is what is the habituated stance that we take so that life is at best neutral, right? And at worst horrific. See?
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is what are the reinforced beliefs, the perspectives, as you say, right? That make us reinforce that that is as good as it gets. You understand? At best, it is neutral. At worst, it is horrific. Now, again, are there going to be times for both you and I and anybody who's listening to this where life is going to be horrific? Yes, yes.
Of course.
If I may, self-disclosure, my father killed himself. My parents were alcoholic. I ran away from home at 13. I succeeded in running away from home after the cops brought me back at 16. Yes?
Yeah.
So again, we are not talking about, coming up in relative poverty. I didn't have clothes. My black friends would say, white boy, don't you have any clothes? And the answer is no. Even though I'm a white boy, I do not have any clothes. Now, I'm not lamenting here because I know there are many, many, many people who have far fewer clothes than I did have. I know that many people like you were raised without a father. I know this. I know this. There are many, many children who, as we speak, are snorting gunpowder and cocaine, getting ready to go out for a firefight in countries in Africa. This is horrific. There are children in India who are being killed for their body parts so that rich people in the West, right, can prolong their lives for another 15 years with a child's liver. This is horrific. This is horrific. All of that being said, if we want more energy, and we want more energy perhaps to invest in helping, then if we will get nourishment in coming back to an acknowledgement of, 10,000 nows in any given day where nothing bad is happening to us. And in that, we become refreshed. You understand? And then when the bad does happen, right, we have more energy again to deal with it with lucidity and problem solving instead of exhaustion and hand wringing.
Definitely. Yeah, like this will pop up in my mind every now and then watching a movie or a video of something really tragic that happens, and I'll just have the thought in my mind like it would suck to be that person. But then I also think like, oh wait, I'm not that person. What am I doing right now? I'm sitting in my house. I'm not getting shot or I'm not getting murdered or I'm not getting whatever, like everything's good for me, so I think, without perspective, we definitely forget how each moment is actually in light of things. Like if you go back 10,000, not that's too long. If you go back 1,000 years, 5,000 years, there's disease, there's famine, there's warring tribes. You're living fight or flight pretty much constantly. And
Dude, unlike now.
Yeah, right. But I feel like in comparison throughout history, the fight or flight is a lot more mundane right now. Like my fight or flight is
for us.
Yeah, for me. Yeah, for me.
Right. So we begin with that, with the humility to acknowledge. Yes. And again, you and I have talked about, Ramses, Pharaoh would spit blood to have what we have as middle class Americans.
Yeah.
Probably of the 7.8 billion of us on the planet, fully 7 billion of us, live in very, very difficult settings, some horrific. Therefore, with that acknowledgement, to the degree that, as the Buddha said, that we can light one corner of the world, right? It is, it behooves us. It is in our interest where we can to give back. And again, if all of us who have abundance made that a norm, there would be so much less suffering, so much less suffering. So we need to think about making that the norm as opposed to gimme. Yes?
Yeah. I mean, it's scary talking to people because everyone is so, me, my family, we are the only things that matter. No, no give, only give me. So I know a lot of people that I've talked to recently that are like that. And so it's like, I guess
in the midst of abundance, based on the people we usually talk to, right? In abundance, they are living threadbare existences because of poor perspective. You're absolutely right about perspective. We've done soupy sales, or you can look at it like this. Yeah,
Yeah.
It really is how you look at it that makes so much difference. And this is where free will is actually so important. We
Because
can
you can
choose.
choose.
Yes, yes, we can. And, with this being my norm for probably 25 years, life has been filled to the brim.
Yeah.
Even though within that time, now as an old man, so many of the people who I've known and loved are dead. They're dead.
Yeah.
Yes?
So I
Well,
guess one way to, for someone who's listening to this, to balance their opposing ideas to what we're saying and what we're saying, if they have, conflicting opinions and they're listening to what we're saying, is just look at what the end result of having those opinions are.
well done.
Look how it affects the people who have had them and
Right.
maintained them for a long time.
Damn. Yes, absolutely right. Now, by the way, this happens to mirror in the Hindu model what is called jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge, which is based on paring down beliefs. Yes?
Yeah.
So, um, somebody saying that because they do not have a Lexus, and so many people do, that this is proof that their lives suck, right? Now,
Yeah.
excuse me, but how does that sound?
I mean, okay, so I know a lot of people who actually believe stuff like that, but to me, I mean, I might offend people saying this, but I think it sounds absurd because there's no perspective there. The kid and live, who's who has no eyeballs and it has to beg on the street corner of India to make money for his master. I don't know that still happens anymore, but that did happen.
Whose parents blinded them so that
Yeah,
they could get more alms. I mean, my dear Lord in heaven. Yes?
yeah, yeah. How do you?
Yeah, this is about perspective. And the whole point of this is that, relatively speaking, if we can invest in the rigor, the discipline of coming back into an acknowledgement, even in lives of difficulty, yeah, of nows, innumerable nows being truly problem free, then this allows a balance to begin to be created where life is not just life's a bitch and then you die. And
Yeah,
since this is the one and only that we get as Alex and Chris, right? Is it or is it not in our interest, to maybe not stick with dukkha, an anguish sense of lack, as our normal nows?
yeah, yeah. So like, if we really want to be able to appreciate what is in front of us on a daily basis, we have to break down our ego about, you know, this is my problems are more important than other people's problems because a lot of it comes from this place of ego where it's about, but it's bad for me. It's bad for me. It's bad for me. Well, if we take away our ego and just say, okay, maybe I don't matter. Maybe it's really bad for that person over there. Like it takes a lot of ego and just giving in kind of to accept that it's not so bad for you. Just to be able to kind of think in these terms, I think, and to really be able to see perspective in order to really show you that life is amazing for you. And it's just this weird thing that I'm kind of breaking down and thinking about that, like, in order to be able to kind of open up and appreciate what is in front of you, it really comes kind of breaking down these like political biases and like and societal biases and ego that you know we have built up a lot about the way things are.
Right.
We kind of, and like it's hard for people to do that because they're so convinced that that's the way things need to be.
It is difficult, particularly if there has been a lifespan of, difficulty. This is true. This is true. We are not denying this. The fact is, why to do this?
Yeah,
Because it is in your interest to do so. If you can have 10 acknowledged nows in every day where no bad shit is happening to you, and you do that every day,
Yeah.
Will that improve your event of being alive?
Yeah, and I'll speak from a personal place, and I'm sure this I can speak from a lot of people in the world, is that we do the opposite. We probably have 10 to 20 acknowledgments of bad a day, and we probably sit there and I do it a lot, and we all need to work on. I'm working on it, but
The
you
real
know,
deal, excuse me, dude, is we don't have 10 bads. We have endless bads because, again, the roller coaster of random thought that we invest in because of that idiot Descartes saying, I think, therefore I am,
yeah,
right? We are not our thoughts. We are not. Thoughts are part of us. But because we ride the roller coaster basically of lament all day long, yes, even in the midst of astonishing abundance, yes,
yeah,
we end up with an anguished sense of lack, which is terribly draining, and
yeah.
it makes life a mockery. Hold on, my doorman responsibilities are required.
So I think this maybe for people who are listening, maybe it sounds pretentious or whatever. I don't care. Just for me, um, I'm glad that I've been um, working with these ideas for a long time, because what I've been working on lately is kind of being able to realize that I can really easily, it's really easy actually, but just redirect my thought process, redirect my emotional thought process. If I'm
Well,
angry or scared or whatever, whatever I'm feeling, it's really easy for me just to go in there and be like, let's just shift and focus on something else. And and like there's and a lot of times,
just not focus on something else because that is like Band-Aid. What you're actually saying is coming back to the fact of your present, right? It's like in After Earth, that terrible movie that had a piece of profundity in it when Will Smith said to his son, when we are in fear, we are in fear of the future. When we are dealing with the fear-based experience of the now, we are not in fear, we're trying to deal with it. Now,
yeah.
that is profound. That is really profound. It's so profound. And it's such a sorrow that that was such a bad movie because that is so
Yeah.
profound.
It's
It's
M
so,
Night Shyamalan. He wrote that. M Night Shyamalan.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
I like him a lot. I think he's really good. He's very controversial, but I like him a lot.
Dark. He's very dark. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
of
know.
course, of course.
And I just get so wearied by endless dark. You know
Have you
this.
seen Have you
Tell me a
seen Lady in the Water?
No, no.
Go
I
watch that.
don't go after him. He also did The Happening,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
about plants, right? Giving out a pollen that makes people not want to live anymore.
A Lady in the Water is really good. It's not scary at all. It's about a fairy tale that it's about a myth or a fairy tale that forms into reality, that takes part in like the I don't know how to explain it. It's a myth, a fairy tale that occurs in reality, but it all takes place within this little apartment complex, and all the different characters of the apartment complex fulfill different archetypes of this myth, and they have to save this girl, the lady in the water, and it's just really, it's beautiful. I think you'll actually really
Oh,
like it.
oh,
The
look,
trailers present
dude,
as scary.
that's a great promo for his movie, by the
It's no, it's
way.
it's good. I mean, it was
well,
not marketed right, so people didn't go see it, but I like it a lot. Yeah,
I'll check it out.
yeah.
Is it available online?
It has to be. I'm sure it is, but I don't know where.
There's two.
Yeah,
Again, if you'll excuse me, old man says to young man, that's miraculous.
yeah,
It's miraculous. Um, so all these things we need to go into with a lack of acceleration. So we will talk about later on the fact that everything we experience, be it through pixels or be it through biochemical receptors looking at actual quote unquote nature, everything that happens to us is real. Therefore, life is filled to the brim. Yeah, filled to the brim.
yeah. So, so just or here, I'll let you finish and then I'll go.
Well, but all this begins with coming back to an acknowledgement that there are innumerable nows where no bad shit is happening to us.
Yeah.
And in that, number one, we can relax. Number two, we can partake then of the abundance of this gift called life, which is limited and which does contain nows which go from terribly burdensome to absolutely horrific.
These ideas aren't that big. Like they aren't so complex. They aren't so it's not a riddle. It's not a big like mystery. It's just that it just takes a little bit of of I guess attention. We just have to put attention
Yes,
to these ideas.
attention. You're absolutely right. Attention. That's what it takes. That's all it takes.
And if we
For
want to live a good life, if we want to live a life of coherence in some manner, if you want that, if anyone wants that, there might be ways to do that. I think you just have to,
yeah, if
give
I
up a
may,
little bit of ego.
coherence is sort of abstract. I dare say, because that has been the case coming out of this old man's mouth who begins to experience decline. I'm 70 years old. Yes. The fact is, for a quarter of a century, my life has been filled to the brim, and I live alone. I've dealt with, the economic collapses of '08 and all the rest of it, all that stuff. That's, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I will say, with attention, there has been so many nows that have been filled to the brim that, as Jesus Christ said, my cup runneth over.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for this brief amount of time in eternity to be here in this place. As Don Juan says, I'm going to do this. You know this, right? Do you ever say, why me? And
I mean,
Caspian goes, right? All
yeah,
the time. And Don Juan says, no. When you say it, what you mean is, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's close enough for jazz, right? When you say it, what you mean is if you are not bored with the world, you are at odds with it. When I say it, I am talking about my supreme good fortune to be in this marvelous desert in this marvelous time. Huh?
yeah.
Huh? Hi. And this is available in relative degrees to almost all of us, unless we are in flight again in the middle of firefights or something, unless we're being raped, unless we are dealing with like those poor kids at St. Jude's who are dealing with cancer, for God's sake. Yes?
Yeah. I think that if we really, if someone can take any value from this, that it is a really pragmatic way of just kind of being here and now appreciating life. There are real ways to appreciate life, and most of the people I've seen online or gurus or whatever it is, they speak a lot of kind of baloney. But I think there are ways to kind of to focus it in and have something that makes sense. And if you really think about what everything we've been talking about, it's nothing that's like so woo woo or out there or anything. It's really just just being pragmatic about the situation. And I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and this is not positive affirmation, which I disdain. I hate that shit. Again, it's like building a beautiful house on top of open sewage, right? What we need to do is go into our own belief systems that are the open sewage. Why do I believe what I believe? Yeah, and how is my belief holding me back from being anything but starving, threadbare in life?
Yeah.
And that is a worthy endeavor. It is a worthy endeavor. Why? Because life is passing.
Yeah. And
Right?
most of the time when we're sitting there saying, why me, why me, why me? Everything sucks right now. The world's so bad. If you really were to pause and take some deep breaths and just say like, what bad is actually happening at this moment?
Hi.
Even if it
Hi.
is some bills, or even if it is like, like your car's broken down, or these like, these superficial things that can be fixed. It's like life is like you're not getting murdered, you don't have you're not getting, raped or pillaged, or like or in a war, or marauders coming into your village and murdering your family and kidnapping your children and destroying all of your house. Like it can be a lot worse. And if we just come back to here and now and have some perspective, we can, you
Yeah,
know.
but understand, it's not just about it could be much worse, right? Because that again, the best you get is neutrality. The fact is that with attention, and maybe with opening up to the fact that, you know, the beauty of life is not just about man-made stuff. Yeah, like that TV commercial with the gal driving across basically the landscape of northern New Mexico saying, "There's nothing out here." It's like, yes, there is. There's a planet right before your very eyes,
Yeah.
right? And again, if you look at the silhouette of the mountains against the night sky with eternity being right there, it is breathtakingly beautiful. And this is not woo-woo, this is a fact. It is breathtakingly beautiful. Again, my hip hop friend, when I talked about the Zen guy saying, you know, on whose roof does it not rain? Life giving rain. And he said to me, well, dude, you know, can it rain on the rooftops in the hood? It's like, yes, it can. Yes, and it
Yeah.
does. It does. Yeah, it does.
And there are people in other parts of the world who allow it to a lot, I think, you know.
Yes. So
Uh,
this is also about, as Krishnamurti says, the awakening of intelligence, where we are using our lives instead of being used by our lives, where we are not. Is there going to be periods of difficulty, pain, suffering unto death? Yes, that is going to happen. In those nows, are we victims? Yes. You know, again, if you have the leisure to look at this, because you and I have the leisure to do this in this now, not life is not just neutral, life is abundant.
yeah.
It is abundant
Yeah.
using these magical tools of technology, if nothing else.